From fabulous Las Vegas, Nevada, this is Pod Therapy. Real people, real problems, real therapists. If you have a question to ask or advice you'd like to give, come on over to podtherapy.net and join the conversation. On today's episode, we promise we will not be talking about Simon and Garfunkel, because we've got too many other things to talk about. And now, broadcasting from Level 9 Studios, that guy is Dr. Jim Jobin. I'm Nick Tangeman. It's time for some Pod Therapy.
Did you like my sounds of silence? Did you get it?
I love the sounds of silence. As a matter of fact, that's what I was asking for last week on the podcast.
Was the sound of silence?
The sound of silence from Jim.
It didn't happen, Nick. It did not happen.
But that is a good reference. I'm surprised that you know that song.
See, I can name... I think that as a golden rule, you can count on me to name one hit song from almost every band. But only one. I've only got one.
We promised we weren't going to talk about Simon Garfunkel.
That's right.
And we made it about 15 seconds.
We made it. Yeah. I'm really proud of ourselves. That's 15 seconds longer. Actually, you opened with it.
You're right.
So I don't know that it was self-defeating, but we will pivot away. We will not talk about Simon and Garfunkel. Let's talk about something more uplifting, Nick. How was your weekend? What did you do this weekend?
It was good. It was good. Went to a movie. So Laura's a big fan of the Oscars.
Yeah, and for the listener, Laura's your girlfriend.
Correct.
Yeah.
And a big fan of movies in general.
Okay.
And so when the Oscars come out, all of the nominated movies go back out in the theater.
Yeah, and I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So when the Oscars are about to happen, those movies, they're available again in the theater.
Yes. I don't know if all of them are, but for the most part, a big chunk of them.
The big ones. Okay, the best pictures and stuff.
Yeah.
Oh.
So we went out, and so we've seen a lot of the movies that were nominated.
Wow.
Yes.
That's really cool. Do you just watch them back to back? Do you guys like movie hop?
No. It's usually one per weekend.
Oh, okay.
So.
Yeah. Well, that's pretty cool that you can just go see movies. Do you want to know the last movie I saw in theaters? Lego
Cars.
Ninjago.
Oh, I was going to guess Cars 2.
Cars 3, and usually we wait for Netflix. But Lego Ninjago, that was the last movie. And before that, it was Moana. The Disney movie about the Hawaiian girl.
Nice.
So yeah, that's what we do. We go. It's very rare that we go see a movie because our kids don't let us do that. So yeah, we only see kids movies. But good for you, man, with the Oscars. So if you had gotten to give an Oscar out for Best Picture, what would your choice have been?
I think my favorite movie out of all of them that I saw was either Lady Bird.
Okay.
Which was really good.
So was Lady Bird? Lady Bird. It was about LBJ's wife?
No.
Oh. Yeah, I did not know that.
No.
I
has
really
nothing
came
to
on
do
the wrong
with
side of that
Yeah,
one.
has nothing to do with LBJ.
Why not?
No, Lady Bird it's this story about this teenage girl in California and her relationship with her mother.
Oh, okay. Wow.
I
totally did not know that. I really thought it was a documentary.
No.
Wow.
No. But then the other one, Get Out, which was done by Jordan Peele.
Oh, that's right. I saw that he... Yeah. So on Twitter, I saw that he won, and it just had said, hey, Jordan Peele or whatever, and it showed a picture. And I tweeted and said, congratulations, Tyler Perry, because he kind of looks like Tyler Perry. But then later I read the article, and it was like, hey, he's the first, African-American to win this award. I was like, oh, okay. I am definitely going to delete my comment because that is insensitive.
So you're going to delete your comment, but then say it here on our podcast.
Prove
okay.
it. Prove that it happened.
Jeez.
All evidence has been deleted. The internet doesn't count, Nick.
God. Okay.
The only people that listen to our podcast are people that can tolerate us, which means they're de facto loyal, and they're not going to send me up the river. So I'm going to be okay. The feds don't listen to this. I'll be all right.
All right. Send your mail to Jim. All right. Moving on. We actually have a lot to talk about today. We got a
lot of good questions been coming in.
A lot of really good questions. So let's just go ahead and get this show started.
Yes, sir.
All right.
My boyfriend has asked me to dress more modestly. I grew up in a small Mennonite town, and my family is Mennonite as well. Although once I moved out, I stopped practicing my religion. I met my boyfriend at a college party during my first year, and he came off as this super sweet Christian guy. He showed me the ropes in the big city. Anyway, we started dating, and he is big on making sure we're in an intentional relationship. He started talking to me about how I dress and has been having me read books and blogs on dressing modestly as a Christian woman. His reasons are as follows. 1, how I dress causes him to sin. 2, it causes other guys to look at me lustfully. And 3, I should be a, quote, Proverbs woman. I don't really want to dress modestly because I see no point in it, but I also want to take his opinions into consideration. What should I do? So, Nick, I'm sure you have strong opinions about this one.
Oh, my God.
Let's just uncork you and I'm just going to sip on my coffee. And whenever you pass out from exhaustion, I'll jump in.
Yeah, this frustrates me so much. It really does.
Let it out, baby.
Yeah. And I think it's not, yes, it frustrates me. I can feel my face getting a little red.
Can confirm his face is red.
Right.
But this is, just so you know, Nick angry is not that much different than Nick reading a book. Let's find out.
You've never golfed with me.
That's true.
Here's the thing. I don't know how you're dressing now, but it doesn't really matter because, number one, okay, how I dress causes him to sin. Mm-hmm. That bothers me.
Okay.
He's not a puppet on a string.
Right.
Okay. You can't blame your own issues on somebody else.
Yeah, that's a good point.
The way you dress makes me do blank. No, that's not how human behavior works.
Make you do anything.
We are accountable for our own behaviors. He's not a puppet on a string. So number one, right off the bat, not an issue. Okay. Number 2, causes other guys to look at me lustfully. Not your problem.
Right.
It's that simple. Not your problem. Okay. And number 3, I should be a Proverbs woman.
Go for it, Nick.
No, here's the thing. Like, that's, I can't judge that. That's up to you as an individual. But I guess here's the thing. Like, to the writer, what are you comfortable with? When you think of yourself as being a woman, what are you comfortable with? What makes you happy? And if dressing the way you do makes you happy, then do it. If no one's getting hurt, and I don't count sin as hurt, no one's getting hurt, just go for it. And if it causes problems with him, then he's now in a situation where he has to find a way to resolve those issues internally amongst himself, or maybe this relationship is not going to work and he needs to move on and he needs to find somebody else who has stuck in the Mennonite tradition. It bothers me. I don't think that you should have to wear a beekeeper suit because somebody else, because they have lustful thoughts if they see you.
That's a good point.
That's a violation of basic human rights.
Well, oh boy, I don't know that I'd invoke the Geneva Convention, but I would say this. It's fascinating because we now live in this era where we have this conversation about slut shaming, right? And it's this outward criticism that used to be very permissible to tell women how to be, how to dress, and to invoke this idea that they are somehow responsible for the social reaction to that. And the kernel of this was a rape victim being blamed for the rape, right? Because it was like, well, what are you wearing? And I think collectively as a society, we have discarded that kind of thinking and said, hey, the fundamental problem was in the perpetrator. The fundamental problem was in the masculine mind and the behaviors associated, and it's not the fault of this person, no matter how they dress. They can't make anybody do anything. So I think to that extent, I think I agree. I think Nick's right. I don't want to see anybody get slut-shamed in this way, and I'm using that word, jovially here. Yay, slut. But actually, I'm going to take the other side of this issue from Nick, in a rare disagreement moment. So here's the thing that I read in this story, Nick. I met this guy at a college party during my first year. He came off as a super sweet Christian guy. So if we replaced that word Christian with Muslim, and it was, I used to be a Mennonite Christian, which is, for the listener, if you don't know that, it's kind of like Amish light. If you could think of like diet Amish, that's what Mennonitism is. They don't quite go with the primitiveness, but they sort of have that traditional value set. So if she would have said, I met this guy, he was a super sweet Muslim guy, and wouldn't you know it, he has Muslim beliefs, and he doesn't want me to dress in ways that offend his faith virtue and offend his worldview, and now we're finding ourselves in conflict. Golly, what should I do? And to me, that's sort of like an inherent question that you begged on yourself. You were attracted to his world view. Now, you yourself stopped practicing this religion, but he wore it on his sleeve on the very first encounter. He advertised, this is my worldview. You now dated that, and now his worldview is conflicting with certain things that you have a fundamental understanding are going to cause conflict. You're literate in religion. You're a Mennonite or a former one. So this is not a surprise. This didn't fall from the sky. So to me, some of this doesn't make sense. And when I read something like this, I kind of feel like she wants people to come to her aid and say, you got to stand up to this guy. You can't be pushed around. Religion is, domineering and patriarchal and women power. And sure, there's an entire social criticism to be had there. But these questions of like, this guy has a concept of sin and he associates that with a mutual attention. It's not just me and my relationship to my God. It's me and those I allow to surround myself and the way that they impact me, right? And so like, I think that that's a fair criticism. She understands the language he's using. And whenever he says, I don't like how other guys are looking at you, religion aside, I think that's a normal male posture. I think any red-blooded American male, if they're dating a female who is outwardly sexually provocative in his estimation, whatever that means, I could see any normal guy over coffee saying, hey, we're in a pretty serious relationship. This is something that bothers me. I'm communicating that. And so like, I don't find necessarily any fault with that. Religion aside, I think that's a fair criticism. Now, the last bit where she says he wants me to be a Proverbs woman, Nick, I'm sure you caught the reference to Proverbs chapter 31.
31.
Yeah, very good. Yeah,
yes.
So Proverbs 31 talks about...
I also know Matthew 5:27 as far as the looking lustfully on a woman.
Look at you.
Yes.
You're a Bible scholar. So Proverbs 31 talks about a virtuous woman and a woman who, is sort of modest and kind of has this different kind of worldview and focus. And so clearly he's invoking that. The fundamental issue to me is, should you be dating somebody in a religion that you do not practice? Is that going to cause a fundamental worldview difference? Clearly, we're starting to see that happen. And so for me, if this was my patient, this female, the question I'd be asking as a therapist is, why did you want to date a sweet Christian guy? Is this nostalgic for you? Is it comforting for you because you understand his worldview? Is there something comforting because he's predictable and you know the lexicon that he thinks with? And if that's what's valuable to you is that you understand how he thinks, I don't think you also get to feign shock whenever, his predictable worldview clashes with the way you're living.
Okay. Now, however, sweet Christian guy, that's a pretty wide range.
Sure.
I think you would be willing to concede that just because someone is a Christian, that doesn't necessarily mean that they are going to have specific beliefs about dress codes and all that.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So we could argue the other side that, maybe she didn't really know what she was getting into. But in either case, I guess, if we were to remove the religious aspect completely.
Right.
If, let's say, I didn't like the way that guys were looking at my girlfriend.
Right.
If it had something to do with the way that she dressed, I would, talk to her about that and say, hey, look, the way that you dress, it kind of draws a lot of attention and it bothers me. Mm-hmm. All right. But I would still keep the focus on it bothers me.
Ah, I see.
Okay.
I see.
And if she chooses to then say, oh, well, you know what? I really care about you. I care about your opinion. If it makes you feel better, if I dress differently, I'm willing to make that change.
Yeah.
Awesome. However, if she says, well, you know what? I like the way that I dress, and I'm sorry that this bothers you. Mm-hmm. It's still on me. That is my burden to overcome. If it's not right for me to say, Jim, there's something about your face
Yeah, that bothers me.
It bothers me.
Do something about it.
You're a good person.
But that face.
But
it's got to change,
I
Jim.
need you to wear this paper sack over your head.
Right, with this happy face drawn on it.
Right.
Yeah, I see your point.
Not your burden. That's my issue. I have to overcome that.
So back to the writer, I guess our advice is this. It's clear that there is an impasse because you clearly articulate, I don't want to change how I dress. And religion aside, I could sum up all this guy's criticisms as, girlfriend, the way you dress makes me feel uncomfortable. And that's him owning his side of the street. If you now look at that and say, there's no way for me to change that behavior, I do not desire to moderate this behavior for the sake of this guy, he's not worth it to me, or I fundamentally disagree with this criticism, there you go. Congratulations, you've discovered a relationship impasse. If you desire the relationship, you'll negotiate a middle ground. If you don't desire the relationship, you'll choose not to continue in it. But I would really discourage any kind of like small-minded criticism of just saying, oh, well, these religious bigots and their oppression of women. Like, I could see people making that larger criticism of entire cultures, and okay, be that as it may. But you opted into this. You have a general set of ideas of what he believes. He's clearly communicating that. Bravo to him. And now, if you're uncomfortable with that and you don't agree with his assessment, walk away. I think, or find the middle ground and say, okay, can you teach me what makes you feel more comfortable? This look was great whenever you wanted to date me, but now that we are dating and we're in a relationship, you kind of desire me to be less marketable. Like, okay, what does that look like? And, is there a way to inoffensively have that conversation? And if not, then communicate that and say, hey, this is really bothering me. This offends my worldview. I don't like it. I think that you're oppressing women by thinking this way. And I think don't be afraid to say that. If that's how you feel, say that. Mm-hmm. Because he's unashamedly explaining his worldview at you and giving you the opportunity to assess and question that. If you disagree with that fundamentally, if you choke on that worldview, say yours back at him and force him to have to consider, how is what I'm saying unfair? And I think that's the dialogue that Nick and I 100% of the time want you to have.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would agree with that. Very, very good question.
Yeah, that was a great one. It's the first religion question we've ever had.
I know. We should have more of those.
Yeah, send in your religion questions.
But yeah, seriously.
Rabbi Nick.
Yeah, please follow up with us. Let us know how that turns out. I'm really interested.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to our next one. Divorced and needing confidence. Hello, you guys have a great pod. Well, thank you very much.
End question.
End question.
That's it.
All right.
Confidence boosted. Thank you.
Now that
that's what the question is.
Here's the thing. Here's the thing to the listener. You don't need to tell us that. That's actually harmful because we hear that and we're like, all right, we can relax.
Oh yeah.
This is how you start off an email.
Yeah.
Is you say, hey,
you guys are terrible.
You guys would have a great podcast. If you would blank.
Yeah.
Keep us motivated.
All right. Read the rest of the question, Benjamin.
Hello, you guys have a great pod, and I was hoping I'd get some advice as to what direction to go to for help. Okay. I've tried a couple of therapists, but haven't found anyone that has helped. Divorced for 3 years, I have zero confidence. I can't seem to get excited or enjoy many things. I feel like everyone is better than me, and I don't deserve much. I'm attracted to beautiful women, but always seem to settle. I'm insecure. Is there anything I can do to improve?
Okay. Very first thought off the top of my head, Nick, feelings are not facts. Because he says, I feel worthless. I feel like I have no value. I feel like others are better than me. I feel like, I assess a very low value myself. Feelings are not facts. That is an emotion. That is not evidence. That is not data. You are precisely as valuable as you choose to be, and your self-assessment is based on being wounded and going through pain. So the very first thing I want to challenge, we're not even at the advice portion here, but I'm just going to challenge the language of that question, buddy, because that's a feeling, not a fact, and I want you to begin thinking in those terms. Is this a fact or is this a feeling? It's a feeling. Let's start with that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And, to speak candidly, I too divorced actually for 3 years, and I can 100% relate to the zero confidence thing. Nothing will knock your confidence down to zero faster than a divorce, especially if it's one that you didn't want, right? I mean, getting divorced and dancing in public are probably the two things that will knock my confidence down to zero.
Number one and number two.
Yeah. And so I can absolutely relate to that. And that, it sucks. I'm sorry to hear that. But I would agree with Jim. Feelings are not facts. And as far as what will help for therapy, so you said you've tried a couple therapists but haven't really found one that has helped. I guess for me, the solution to this is twofold. I think therapy is definitely part of the equation. Finding a therapist that is going to help you with that, but also I would say when going into therapy, go in with some sort of idea of what it is that you hope to accomplish in therapy. For me, I ended up going into therapy afterwards, and I didn't do it right away. Like it was probably a year and a half after it happened that I finally did it. And for me, the only thing I really wanted to get out of therapy was just to get things out of my own head. I wasn't even really looking for advice because I've got friends that are therapists. You know, I had a really good support system that I would use. But the problem that I got into is that I always felt guilty for using that support system.
Right.
I wanted a guilt-free support system. Right. And for me, that equated to therapy. And so that, just going in there with that mindset, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to go in there. I'm going to drop off all my baggage and just for another human being to help me sort out, and I can leave there guilt-free and feel good about it. That's one thing. I think the other approach to this is what you're going to do for yourself. It is all about confidence. And I've talked on this podcast, if you've listened, so you've heard me say, some things that helped for my confidence.
Right.
For me, is all about taking care of myself.
Yes.
And it was about doing things that I felt confident in. Starting with that. And, I think I said it in 2 podcasts ago, we had a similar question. For me, it started with, getting a new hairstyle, getting a haircut. And then I started paying attention to the way I dressed, and I started dressing nicer. And then I started working out, and working out is amazing for confidence.
Yeah. Especially with old people.
Yeah. That's the way to do it.
That's
absolutely. Yeah. And so, those things for me definitely helped me. And I can relate to, the sentence that you have in here, I'm attracted to beautiful women, but always seem to settle. Well, yeah, because
you don't have any confidence.
It's confidence. It all goes back to confidence. And that's the one thing that if you ask women what they're attracted to, it's confidence.
Right.
I mean, when you have confidence, when any of us have confidence, we are twisted steel and sex appeal. Like we are just, we are on top of the world, and we are attractive to women, right? When we don't have confidence, we are none of that.
Exactly.
And women can smell that from a mile away.
All people can. All people can. And, to piggyback on some of what Nick's saying, I think he's on the right track with positively identifying proactive things you can be doing. I think we're both in agreement that therapy is the right place for you. Now, 3 years and to still feel at zero is tough. And what that teaches me is that there's been very little rebuilding. And so, honestly, I'm going to start with some baby steps here, Nick. My advice to this writer is the very first thing I want you to do, if I can give you some homework, I want you to sit down with a blank piece of paper, and I want you to brainstorm every positive thing you can think about for yourself. And at first you're going to say, nothing. Okay, that's adorable. Stop. That's not true. I want you to think about it. Go through your whole life and think of every time you've ever had a positive experience that the world sort of affirmed something about you. Oh, I sang a good song at karaoke once. Okay, singing is on the list. I did okay in math. I used to get an A in math in high school. Okay, math. And I want you to one by one identify every small positive thing about you that you can think of. I just want you to fill up a page. Don't do anything with it. Just fill that up. The next baby step of homework I want you to do is I want you to create on the back side of that page a list of 3 to 5 names, people in your life who actually matter, who if you called, they would probably answer instead of letting it go to voicemail. Okay, that's a good test. And if those are the people that you can identify, 3 to 5 names, I want you to send them a message, an email or text or a phone call and say, hey, listen, I'm doing this activity at the request of a therapist. You can name drop me if you need to. Can you maybe tell me a couple of things about me that you like? And that sounds, I know that sounds weak, and that sounds, people feel uncomfortable with that. I have done this for my friends. And this is partly what friends do for each other is they remind each other. They give us a reality check. Whenever we're starting to find this obscure funhouse mirror version of ourselves that isn't true, it's through the eyes of others that we get a reality check that sort of resituates our mind and brings us back to ground level and baselines us again. And so that's something I want you to do is a reality check with some of the people in your life that matter, just asking, hey, can you let me know 2 or 3 qualities about me that are good qualities, and just leave it at that. And they'll tell you, yeah, man, I really like this. You're a caring person, or you're a funny person, or you're articulate, or you're a good writer. I like this about you. You're friendly. You're easy to talk to. You're a good listener. Let them give you some perspective. And that might sound small and make you feel inferior, but I'm just going to ask you to challenge that. I want to start with those 2 baby steps. What do you see in yourself if you're taking an honest look, and letting other people that matter give you some advice as well?
Yes, I think that's a great start. I think, and also, when it comes to dating and when to start dating after a divorce, I would say getting that stuff, that Jim is talking about, getting that taken care of first before getting into the dating pool, because, we attract women that are at the level that we are currently at.
Sure.
Right? I mean, so if your confidence is at 0, you're going to be attracting that group of women that are attracted to
a guy with 0 confidence.
Yeah.
There's an old saying in marriage and family therapy, Nick, people often think opposites attract. And the reality is birds of a feather flock together. It's not the other way around. And so you're going to be as attractive as you sort of have inside of you. But I think that Nick's absolutely right. We got to start with the self-care. And as a general rule of arithmetic, if you're out there and you're divorced and you're wondering when should I start dating, because that's a question I just heard Nick ask, the general rule that I prescribe is 3 months for every year. So every year you were married, take 3 months off the dating game. And so if you were married for 10 years, it's going to be about 30 months before I really want to see you back into the game. And you think to yourself, oh my goodness, 30 months is almost 3 years. As a general rule, that's the math that we use to figure out when do we expect that you will have sort of healed from this to a place that you're at an acceptable version of yourself, that you're going to have positive relationships. Now, you might date, but if people ask, that's our general rule of thumb. A lot of people do it their own way, but that's a good rule to live by.
Very good. Yes, and listener, please follow up with us.
Yes, and thank you for listening, and thank you for writing in. Please continue to do so.
Yep.
All right. So this next question is a longer one, Nick, but fascinating question. So this is the one that everybody was waiting to hear. This is the question of the day. So here it is. My girlfriend of over 2 years wants to sleep with her coworker. So, my girlfriend whom I live with wants to have sex with a coworker and doesn't know why she has these feelings. She's never had a long relationship. I've had 2. She says she's already been through her sleeping around phase. She says that I'm the one she wants to be with and she loves me, which I believe. She went out to the bar with the coworker and some friends a couple weeks ago and realized she was having sexual feelings for the guy. She says she has no emotional attachment to him and doesn't want to date him or be with him. She says that she thinks she feels this way because it's something new and he's Spanish. Not because he's better, just because he's different than me. A week ago, she went to the pool to chill with the same crew from the bar and told me on her way home that she told this coworker about her feelings because she had to get them off her chest. Then, they just talked for like an hour, she said. Of course, he's 23 and he would love to have sex with her too. Of course he did. She's 23 and she's hot. Again, I'm glad she's being honest here, but it still hurts. She says she likes the attention because in high school she wasn't very attractive, and no one gave her attention like this. She says she doesn't know why she feels that way. She says if she has sex with him, she feels the feelings will go away, and she can move on, and she thinks she just needs to make our relationship stronger by doing it. She says she wants to marry me one day, and that I'm the only one she wants to be with. Up until now, I've been in it to win it with her. I love her dearly. We've been talking about all this for the past week. She wants to know if I would give her permission to have sex with him. She even asked me last night if I wanted to have sex with one of her friends or anybody else. I said absolutely not. I don't want to have sex with anybody else. I asked her even if I gave her permission, would she feel clean or okay afterward? She said that she wouldn't feel dirty about it. She told me today that she does want to settle down and feels like it would be a last hurrah of sorts. I mean, of course I'm not okay with it, but I love her so much. I don't know what to do. Should I give her permission? I'm scared that she will want to be with him afterward. What would I feel like afterward? Would I be disgusted with her? I don't know. We did discuss hypothetical rules already, just so I could gain some leverage and have some sort of control and see her reaction. She says she's not sure if she would go through with it if I said it was okay.
Okay.
Wow, that's a big one. That's a big question, Nick.
Yeah.
A lot of layers there, and this is a minefield of complication. This is tough. But what's interesting about this, Nick, and one of the reasons I really liked this question, this is something I think a lot of people are starting to deal with. We're starting to see this sort of sex-positive movement that's sort of happening in America again, and a lot of people kind of stepping into these open relationships in the age of Tinder. There's sort of this casuality that's sort of encouraged. And what I hear in this is we have a real relationship. It's really serious. But my girlfriend is being honest with me, telling me she's sexually attracted to somebody else, asking for my permission to sleep with him, and assuring me that I'm still the guy she wants to be with, but she just wants this to be a physical fling on the side. Complicated thing though, right?
Right. There are couples who do this. There are couples who have an open relationship.
Right.
There are couples, polyamory. I know that this does occur.
Yes.
Right? And there are couples who can pull it off.
Yes.
This is not one of them.
Right. Yeah, right there.
And here's the thing, to the listener, I want you to know that my feedback here is coming from a place of love and support.
Yeah.
It's going to come off a little brutal, but there's a lot of things in here that just concern me. Mm-hmm. Number one, right off the bat, you're not going to be okay with this.
Nope.
Hypothetically, if this were to happen, you are not going to be okay with that. And I know that simply because you are writing, asking for advice.
That's right.
If that's your starting point, once this happens, it is not going to go well for you.
No.
And the other thing that really bothered me about this, and maybe I just misread it or misinterpreted this, but I don't know what all you have already talked about, but the part where you're saying that a week ago she went to hang out with this guy and she told him about this.
Right.
That struck me because that's a behavior.
Right.
She is already taking action.
Yeah.
Unless that was already discussed with you that she was going to tell him about this. When I read that, what I'm hearing her do is I'm taking action already without having discussed this.
Right.
That to me is a very bad sign. To me, look, my friend, it feels like you are kind of being held hostage here.
Mm-hmm. And I can see that, Nick, because she kind of comes back to assuring him, hey, I want to be with you. Hey, I want to be with you. I even want to marry you. You know, and hey, this is just my last hurrah. And hey, I wasn't attractive in high school, but this is like really important to me. And it's like there's a lot of salesmanship that seems to be happening here. And
sleep with one of my friends instead.
Yeah, here, I'll offer you a sacrifice. You know, you can have sex with one of my friends. And it's like it's becoming more and more. And you know, he's very clearly saying, I don't want that. And so now she's making offers and she's making overtures. And again, that's not to say that she's bad or manipulative or anything like that, but it is to say there is clearly a one-sided desire in this. And I think Nick's point is very, very evident here. The fact that you are writing in, the fact that you are resistant and that you are struggling with this and that this is not natural to you implicitly teaches us that you're not going to be okay with this. It's not a desire in you. Now, if there's a small amount of sexual curiosity, you know, to fantasize about this and to think about it, sure, you're human. That's a very natural thing. But when you're running this through your emotional filter and you're feeling like this is foreign to how I understand love, this is foreign to how I understand relationships, this is not the way I would describe my life, guess what? When this happens, it's going to feel like an out-of-body experience. You're going to be lost and unmoored and very confused.
Yes.
And it is going to be something that actually causes harm. I do not recommend it.
Yeah. In our last podcast, I said on the air that I am not in the business of making predictions because I am wrong about them almost always.
Yeah.
So keep that in mind because right now I'm going to make a prediction.
Okay.
I'm going to completely go backwards on everything I just said.
Yeah.
In the last podcast. If this were to happen, here's what I think is going to happen. Mm-hmm. We had just talked, in the person who wrote in the importance of confidence. Okay. You are already feeling a sense of insecurity about this.
Right.
Once this happens, that insecurity is going to go through the roof.
Be magnified.
Whatever confidence that you did have now is going to drop tremendously.
Right.
On the other hand, on her side of this, yeah, she's going to have sex with someone new. That's always exciting.
Right.
It's not always good, but it's always exciting.
Confidence boost.
Right.
Yeah.
There's going to be the release of endorphins. That dopamine is going to go. That oxytocin, which is the neurotransmitter associated with love and bonding, that happens during sex, right? So from her perspective, at the end of this, she's going to have, on one hand, this new lover that I just had sex with, and it was exciting and it was fun. And on the other hand, my boyfriend of 2 years,
who's now more insecure,
and has low self-confidence.
Right. It's going to be...
That is not a recipe for a long-term relationship right there.
Exactly. And I agree with that prediction. And if I can give some advice to the writer to be very on the nose about it, here's the deal, brother. You are going to have to make a very hard choice, because I see in this a woman who's already pulling away. She's already making a bed to sleep in, metaphorically. And I think that this is a tough situation for you. And I can tell that you want to give in, because you say it at the end, I don't want to lose her. But this is the devil's wager. You cannot win this fight. And so I think you've got to take a stand for yourself. Now, can you forbid her to sleep with others? You can say, I'm not available for an open relationship. If that is something you want, all I ask is that we break up. And you've got to be willing to risk that. You've got to be willing to state, this is my value. This is what I'm available for. This is what a consensual relationship with me looks like. If you choose not to be a part of that, I understand, I respect you, I care for you. Go about your way. But brother, you cannot play this game scared. And right now I see that. I see him playing this game scared. He's negotiating with somebody who has a hostage. You know, and it's his heart that's being held hostage. And you have to cut and say, you know what? This is what I'm available for, period. And if she doesn't accept that, then you have to be willing to let it end. Because guess what? Like it or not, buddy, you're going to lose her. Okay? You're going to lose her in some sense. The relationship you currently have is about to die and is going to change. And either it's going to be you guys go into this new evolution where now she's allowed to date around, which is very painful and very hard, and I don't think it's going to work out, or it's going to be that you break up and she goes about her business and sows her wild oats. Because she says she needs a last hurrah, then you're not ready for this relationship.
Yes, I would definitely agree with that. That was something that stuck out to me too, was the whole last hurrah thing.
Yeah.
Like, when you get into a serious relationship, that part of the brain, the limbic system, doesn't just turn off.
Right.
Okay, so the limbic system is the part where if I'm driving down the road and I see a young, attractive female out jogging,
right,
that limbic system tells me right away, like, you need to mate with that woman. Right. She looks healthy. She can bear the offspring.
And that's
it's
Darwinian
a drive.
Evolution.
Right.
That's not a moral decision. It's an automatic thought.
That just naturally happens. That doesn't go away once you're in a committed relationship.
Right.
What happens is we've got the frontal lobe part of the brain, which is the adult responsible part of the brain that jumps in and governs the limbic system and says, okay, yes, she's very attractive, but you're in a committed relationship.
Right.
You can't take those actions.
Right.
What I'm reading here is she doesn't seem ready for that committed relationship.
That's right.
Because that part of the brain that is not governing the limbic system. She's saying, I should have sex with that guy. I want to do that.
And you know, the point that I'll make here, just to can bring that point all the way home. She says that to him, Nick. She says, I've never been in a long-term relationship. He says, I've been in a couple of these. She doesn't know what it is to be in a long-term relationship. She is treating this like it's still very casual. And all of her hopes and wishes are lovely. She says, oh, I think we'll get married. Listen, buddy, you know what the odds are that she's going to marry the first guy she's been in a serious long-term relationship with while she still wants to sleep with other guys? This thing is not stacking up well. There are lots of red flags that tell me the things that you're holding on to are false promises. They are empty promises. She can't deliver on these promises because she's not even aware of her own relational maturity. She doesn't even know what she lacks. But you can see it. We can see it. And you've got to do some self-care and some guarding of your own heart because you are being set up to fail and you're going to have to make a hard decision. I'm sorry that that's what you're facing, but I don't think that this is going to work for you. Now, to all the listeners out there who are preparing their hate mail, that are about to say, you know what, you guys are primitive, you guys are old-fashioned. There's a lot of people that successfully navigate these waters. You're absolutely right. There are a lot of people that successfully navigate these waters. And I know very many of them, actually. I've had lots of patients that are swingers, or have open relationships. I have friends that are this. And here, without a doubt, is the one thing they all agree on. It should be honest. It should be consensual. That's the thing they'll all say, that's right. The ground they'll die on, is that it should be honest, it should be consensual.
Right.
This is not that. And I think that if you're out there and you live that kind of a lifestyle, you're polyamorous, you're a swinger, you're open, you're casual, totally fine.
Yeah.
There's no way you disagree with us that a consensual relationship is the bedrock of this.
Absolutely.
And that's not what this is.
Yeah, and being manipulated into consent is not consent.
Right. Threatened into it is not consent.
And also to you, the listener, if you're thinking that, well, this may be the only way of saving this relationship, that's not consent either.
No. The relationship's
that's a
already gone.
Last-ditch effort to try to save this.
You lose this incarnation of your relationship either way. It will be a different relationship on the other side of this tunnel. So no matter what, it's coming to an end. If you want to have any hope of a future relationship that resembles this one, you're going to have to draw that line in the sand and explain what you're available for.
Right. You need to value you above anybody else.
Yeah, be fearless.
Value your mental health, value your emotional security, and that should take precedence. And if, do whatever you want. You're an adult. You'll make whatever decision, and I hope you write back and let us know how it goes. But however, whatever decision you make, you need to make a decision that is going to be supportive of you first and no one else. And if she's not the one for you, if she's not ready for a healthy relationship, look, there's like 8 billion people on the planet, right? Like you didn't just pick the best
That's
woman, right? I mean, there's so many other women out there that do want the same thing you want.
That's right.
And you can be happy.
Yeah.
So don't think that this relationship is the end all be all and you have to save this, otherwise your life is going to be miserable. That's complete bullshit.
Right. And macroscopically, Nick, to zoom out a little bit and not just speak to this particular writer and his unique situation, but to all the listeners, it is very normal, I think, in this day and age for every person that's in a serious relationship to ask themselves, would I be comfortable with this? This is common conversation now. It's not taboo. It's not forbidden. It's a normal lifestyle choice. And I think, again, if you're out there and you're thinking about this, a thing as a therapist, if you came, and I've had this happen, Nick, I've had couples come to me and say, we haven't opened our relationship yet. We're here to talk about it because we're trying to be healthy and proactive. And things that I'll ask them to consider are thought exercises, right? Mm-hmm. One movie that I'll ask people to watch is a movie called Extract. And it's actually a popular movie, and it's about a guy and his wife, and they're not working out really well. And he sets her up to have a casual encounter with somebody else. And he's doing that so he can have a casual encounter, kind of like the girl in the story is. But it all backfires, and it turns out it hurts him very deeply, and it becomes this very complicated thing. And I think it's a really good visualization of what could go wrong. Now, if you watch that movie or things like it, and you don't relate to any of that, then you might be a good candidate for this. But you need to understand that while we use words like open and casual, and it sounds flirty and sexy and fun, and we can all relate to it with a little bit of our brain, you need to understand that by and large, the human population across the world in all cultures and all manifestations over all time tends to be monogamous. That's not for religious reasons, though religion often enforces it. It's not for political reasons, though politics often enforces it. It's because of Darwinian evolution, and it has to do with how we take care of our young and how we mate and make families and create lifestyles. We're wired for this. It's possible that you're not wired for that. It's possible that you can transcend that wiring. But accept that it's going to be transformative no matter what. Mm-hmm. It is going to be unnatural. It's going to be a rebirth experience, and you might find that invigorating and exciting. But you need to do a lot of thinking and thought experimenting before you cross that void, because you don't know who you will be on the other side of it, and at least take it seriously.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you for writing in. This is a tough one. I feel for you. This is not going to be easy, regardless of what decision you choose to make. But please follow up with us.
So, Nick, it's so funny because we're talking about swinger sex this time, and we're talking about how to get divorced confidence back, and we're talking about how women ought to dress modestly, and we're talking about how you can feel more manly or make a guy feel more manly. And it's funny because as I look at all this, I realize how interconnected they all are. Like, they answer each other's questions. How could you make your guy feel more manly? Not what the fourth question is doing. Don't do that. How can I boost my confidence? Don't do what that guy's doing in the fourth question. Like, that's a very interesting dynamic that you could actually answer a lot of the other questions by what's going on in this last one.
That's actually really good. That's an interesting observation. I didn't even catch that.
Yeah,
they all kind of tie
answer
together.
Each other, you know. But I think to all of our writers this week, wow, guys, great questions, and they're so real and they're so honest. And we just want to encourage you, if you're out there and you're listening to this, you've never written into the show, no question is too big, no question is too small. Get those in here. We want to chew on it with you. We want to live with you, and we want to hear back. You know, how did you use it? Did you use it? And was it successful? And if you heard any questions today that you want to give some advice to, jump onto podtherapy.net, comment on this episode with your own advice, because the writers go to the website and they look for that. So feel free to give your own perspective and your own advice. All right, that's all the time that we've got for this week's session. Thank you to those who contributed to our show today. We really appreciate it. Remember, Pod Therapy isn't something you should keep all to yourself. Help us reach others by sharing this episode. You can find us on Facebook.com/podtherapy or on Twitter @PodTherapyGuys.
If you want to add your own advice to today's questions, post your thoughts at podtherapy.net and join the conversation. I'm Nick Tangeman.
I'm Jim Jobin.
Thanks, and we'll see you for your appointment next week.